driveway. It's my brother, and I think it's just my brother and I are the trustees.
Sure.
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. It's not your brother, is it?
No, but our brother.
This is Andrew, who has been a builder and been involved in the property for the last 10 years or so. So, Mr. Chairman, to the extent you have questions about the history of the site, I think Andrew would be best suited to answer some of those questions.
Okay.
So this application seeks a 38% building coverage variance. And as I mentioned in our submission materials, it relates to a prior nonconformity that existed at the time that my clients purchased the property last September. The nonconformity relates primarily to a patio around the pool area, as well as another small patio area and retaining walls. These improvements were built when the house was built back in 2005, 2006. So this has existed in its current configuration for about the past 10 years. After my clients purchased their home, again in September of 2015, they decided to make an improvement to their driveway area that necessitated an application to the planning board, and it was during that process that the nonconformity was discovered and the need for this variance arose. So they are simultaneously processing before the planning board, and we're here tonight to fix or correct the existing nonconformity. I would ask Banna to briefly walk the board through the property, the driveway improvement that is pending before the planning board, as well as the retaining wall associated with that driveway improvement.
Good evening, Banna Shura, the architect on this project.
You know, I think for the benefit of Tom, I might just stuck with the secretary. Everybody, if you have a card, and anybody has a card, if they give it to Tom, that'd be able to help. Also, we gave notice of this, you'll need to have proof of that. If you didn't give notice, that's a problem.
And we'll just adjourn, we're going to continue it next month.
Yeah, no. But these are the notifications to the neighbors.
Give it to Mr.
Gentlemen,
Lordy,
right there,
please.
All right. And this is a copy of the letter that went with this notification. That's mine. This is our site plan that shows the improvement that we are requesting as part of this application. And as you've noticed probably by going to the property, it is so hard to be able to go out and turn around and come back down and be able to face down. It's very steep hill, and to turn around with the protection walls, it's very, very difficult, so you do several maneuvers to come down. So we tried to find the best solution to give us some space without having to modify too much of the integrity of the property. So a retaining wall was the best solution. We tried different other options, and then we felt that this is the most efficient and the least impacting to the quality of the properties, keeping it the most. So if you can see here, there was this wall, and in yellow was the original wall. And we eliminated that wall basically and pulled it over, and that created the need for extra depths, and that allows us to leave 2 cars or 3 cars parked and still be able to maneuver in and out of the garage. So whenever any guest coming into this property was so impossible to, and nobody feels like backing up that hill on the turn, especially I had problems, I was parking downstairs. So anyway, so that was the reason why we did this. And then part of the application to the planning board, and their concern was the quality of the landscape. We are proposing again, because that wall will be slightly higher from the grade, because the grade is lower at this end, will be a little bit taller than the wall that's already existing. So
What'll be the height of the wall at that point?
12
12 feet.
in the worst case scenario.
Now,
Then,
that's from property below, that is well below the driveway you're talking about, right?
yeah, this is from that point where the grade is. The property keeps going much further down. But
Okay.
when you are at the grade here, we go down C contour lines, which make this wall about 3 feet higher in the part that is exposed.
So at the base of the wall, it's 12 feet above grade? At the highest?
At the highest, from the top of the wall.
And how about the lowest?
And that provides.
You said base, you said top.
Yeah.
You mean top?
From the wall, where the base of the wall is, it will go 12 feet high. That's what
That's
she's saying
right.
at the highest.
So when we say height is the top of the wall being the actual top, and it could be the driveway is lower, the wall is a little bit higher to provide protection on the top.
Someone looking at the wall from the other side,
Yes, would see 12
a
feet.
12-foot wall.
Exactly.
Actually, they'll be looking up at a 12-foot wall.
Yes, Your Honor.
And what would they see today before you do this?
I will show you. So we did a comparison between the existing view right now from the driveway This is from the street. Basically, I'm outside taking a picture showing what this wall, the current wall looks like, with the current vegetation and the trees that are existing right now. So what we are suggesting.
Before you leave it,
Yes,
if you measure from the base of the current wall to the top of the current wall, what's the difference?
the highest is about eight or 8.5 feet, depends on what point.
So you want to add 3.5 feet?
Correct.
Okay.
So simply because the top stays the same, it's just the grade is lower, so that causing the wall to appear.
And it's lower
It's
because you're moving it out in the
No,
property?
it's,
Okay, I got that one.
yeah.
Ma'am?
When you put the elevation of the top of the wall, it's the same. What happened is the grade is lower.
Okay, so the property runs away from the house, and therefore where the wall will be, it's lower than it is now?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, and that's, if you can see it here. So this is what the wall looks like. So we're gonna take all the stone that's on current wall and reuse them on the face of the new wall, and then create, and which is gonna protrude out about 20 feet out from this point forward. Which then
Stop, go back to the, what's gonna protrude 20 feet out?
the actual wall. This is the retaining wall facing the street.
That we see from that
You
photograph,
see from the photograph, you're actually seeing it this way,
Mhm.
goes well.
okay?
It's the same width. It just went out. It's 20 feet to allow us
It's
to.
getting closer to the road. Is that right?
What's it,
Yes,
It's closer to the road. It's closer to,
That is correct, but we are still, about 80, exactly. More than 80 feet away from the we're 168 feet from the street.
at present,
And that was the proposal.
with the proposal?
Yes. No, it's not okay. And the most protruding point would be 140 from the street. From the property line, I'm sorry, it's not the street, it's the right of way of the village.
Right.
It's 140 feet from the property line.
Gotcha.
This is the proposed wall with the existing trees and the proposed trees.
So you're not going out as far as the existing trees?
No, wait, no, we're waiting.
Okay.
And we're planting quite a bit in between, and these are an actual rendering of the actual size of trees that we are proposing to plant. As when you plant them, of course, they're going to grow more. And so really the view from the street is not being impacted by this addition or expansion. It's really keeping it all the same quality walls, same stones, same level, top, just the grade goes down. That's it.
It's a cute trick, that's good.
Yeah, and then just have these two pictures side by side to see what you see now and you see later. You really can't.
By your photographs, yes.
No, they're real. I mean, we have professional people put it together, so it's not really an imagination, it's actual. So this is the proposed wall, and this is the proposed trees and planting, which is listed on our site plan and the landscaping proposal.
And that's the only new work you're doing?
So this whole application is basically taking into consideration the real hardship to really be able to get out of the property, to move around that house being already so high. And also the environment and the impact that it has on the neighbors, we all took care of that. I have done an aerial view of the site to show you that this wall, where it's going to be. I'm sorry. This wall is actually invisible from this area because it's right here. on
If you can do that from the other side, I think, there you go. Okay.
No, I showed you where it's visible. I mean, you can see all these trees all around it, so and this is the street.
And Pat, the neighbor at 19 Meadow that submitted the letter of support, where's that property? Want to point that out?
19 Meadow would be on the right. This,
So the entrance to the property is right here, so it would be right there. So
That's the that's the one neighbor that was potentially be impacted. We've shown the plans to that neighbor, they have provided a letter of support that was submitted as part of our application package.
The name of that neighbor?
the name of that neighbor is,
They're on for next month.
it's Tal then.
It's Leah and Tal Gozhansky, Gozhansky.
And while you're spelling, maybe you could spell the name of the owner trustee who spoke before.
Andrew Rafal, Rafal.
This isn't our full-time secretary, you know, we have to deal with what we have.
That's him I'm talking about.
I'm very old.
Not very.
Okay. So the only change to what's there now is that you want to move the, in effect, the driveway and the wall out towards the street and add screening at the same time. And the screening is not a matter of controversy, but the moving of the wall out and making it effectively higher is the only reason you're here. Except for the history of the place, which we have to go into.
And is it true that you're actually going to be less in coverage than you are presently?
Correct.
By 100 feet?
Correct.
How are you accomplishing that?
Because there's some removal of stepping stones that currently lead from the home to the pool is coming out, some other retaining walls are coming out. The only new improvement that technically is covered by would be covered by the variance would be this retaining wall, right? Under the village code, the driveway improvement is not counted as building coverage. So the only new improvement that would count is this retaining wall. So you add in that retaining wall, you eliminate the stepping stones and some other retaining walls, and when you do the math, it's net, I think, 127 square feet.
That's right.
So yes, overall, the amount of the nonconformity would be reduced.
I need to get to the, can we go to the history?
How did you get there to begin with?
So how did we get to 38% over? Because, and what is already included in your, what do you have permission for?
Why
Where
don't we
are
go
you?
to the
You
chart?
want the
What chart? Of the actual 7?
I drove it to
Seven.
You couldn't turn on.
I could.
It's basically, this is our, the
This is
chart
the trust
that is
center.
on
Yep,
the,
it's the same one.
St. Lars, okay.
Yeah.
So, this is that site we just went on before. Basically, we're identifying every lot coverage according to the new or the current limit.
This is existing
This is existing
as of today.
as of today, and without the proposed wall. This is showing exactly how many square feet we have all over. So every retaining wall we see, every patio, the pool, the buildings, all the playgrounds, and anything that is counted according to the current village code is accounted for. And the chart that came up with that, and it is the chart that we have. This is it with the proposed.
What does the building department have on file in terms of approved lot coverage?
For the approved lot coverage, well, it would be, I don't know offhand, right, because the nonconformity is the 10,303. So there are building permits, there are COs for the house for many improvements. I'd have to add up each one of those.
In other words, what's allowable?
The allowable as of right, the max, is 7,489 square feet. And so there's 10,303 would be in the proposed condition. So there's a difference of 2,814 square feet.
So as of '09, it was in conformity.
Excuse me?
As of '09,
Yes.
it was in conformity.
Yes, yes.
Then thereafter, someone took a big jump and increased it almost 50, 40, 50%. Right, because you just said allowable 7,400, you said something like that?
7480, sorry.
Actually, I think,
It's 39%.
if I understood the history from the visit the other day, in '09, it may not have been in conformity, but there was a survey that yielded numbers that would show it was in conformity. Why don't you give us, if you could tell us when this property was built up and built out, and
Can I mention one thing
Yeah.
here is that there were two properties when the original house was built was on one property, and there was a purchase of another lot and got merged. So there was never one survey that had the two property together until now.
Was the seller of the home, you just purchased it in September or something like that?
September of 2015.
Were you related, was anyone related to the prior owner? Okay.
Now
Andy,
that-
why don't you come up and explain some of the improvements over the years? And what changed in 2009, if any?
Okay. And you got this chart,
Okay.
which shows various coverage numbers depending on the year, 2005, 2009, current and proposed.
Okay,
And that's why we're asking about.
I understand.
Okay.
So, as the house was built, the house was built with foundation of the house, foundation of cabana, and outline of swimming pool without the patio, and play area, which is the trampoline. That was 2004 application
Okay.
For new construction.
for new construction.
You weren't the architect then, right?
No, I was the builder.
The building, okay.
Contractor, right. Then, Mr. Rosner, David Rosner, who owned the property for whom I worked, wanted to add some landscaping and other work. At the same time, we did the retaining walls, which on the time when the application were done by us as the architect, the retaining walls did not calculate that to coverage. So that's why they were not counted. They didn't have to be
The
calculated.
code did not require.
The code did not require, which is the main part of this mess.
The retaining walls you're talking about?
Yes, retaining,
Which
which is substantial coverage, because if you take this retaining wall here, this adds up to a lot of square feet.
The wall jumped from 453 to 1144 as a result of including it in the calculations.
Right, that was just about 10%.
Right. That's, I'm giving you this.
It wasn't the majority, it was
Right.
just.
Well, I didn't say majority, just part of it. Right, right. So anyway, Mr. Rosner wanted to do the patio, and he purchased this part of the property, which was not part of his lot, his original lot. That was the line of the original lot, that's what he owned. For that purpose, only for that purpose, he purchased the other property, to be able to increase his coverage. As we did this,
When did he do that?
2009, I think that's 2009.
It's earlier than that.
A little earlier, right. 2007, 2006.
It's something in the
Right.
2006.
2006. In 2009, I believe, right, Andrew, there was the basketball court added. In 2009, there was application for basketball court added to add for the coverage, and that's the 2009 year.
But to be clear, like, the pool patio, for example, on the chart, it doesn't show up in 2009 because it wasn't on a survey. This chart is based upon existing surveys. The pool patio itself was installed back in around 2006. So I think that's a little bit of confusion with the chart, because this is really numbers taken off of surveys. And as part of this application, it's an updated survey that obviously reflected the latest and greatest numbers.
So in 2009, the survey didn't pick up what was in
The survey did not pick up, the application did not pick up, no, the
The
survey
application
did.
for the basketball court.
Right.
What happened was there was a permit application made to the village for a basketball
What
court
about the
back
bowling?
here. It's identified as a play area.
Is that part of this or
And the
not?
survey just happened to leave off certain things.
Because
Programs,
it was in the
like
back.
what else is
So
not picked
the
up?
plan that was submitted.
It is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to recreate, and we've got, but thank goodness we have Andrew, who was part of it, and has been part of the project for the last 10 years, so he's the best source of information we have in terms of what.
So when was the patio built? Did you build a patio?
Yeah, I built a patio around 2006.
Surveys on the back.
At the same time you built the basketball court?
No, and later on in 2009, we built the basketball court and apply, and then David Rosner applied for COO for basketball court, showing on the application, showing the patio, but I guess the calculation listed. He did it, he bought this part of property specifically for both of those things, actually also taking out, which he discovered is not enough, to do the tennis court. But in any case,
Or the patio, but
right, whatever. But there are two different architects. The landscape architect designed one, the other architect designed other, and somehow the surveyor did not combine the drawings.
When he bought the additional piece of property, and therefore added to his property so his permitted coverage would increase,
Right.
what was the status of his coverage at that point? Would it have been legal?
he probably would be almost legal because the retaining walls were not going to be calculated, or he would be very close and would have to maybe come in front of the board, but he was just not aware that in the application it happened.
If in the calculation at that time you included the pool patio, would he have been legal?
I cannot say that for certain, I cannot say that, it would be close.
You have a copy of the 09 survey, do you?
Is it here? Underneath that spreadsheet?
Is it in the package? I don't think it is.
Well, you've got,
The answer to your question has to be no.
yeah, I would guess. I mean, it's a big, beautiful patio, how everybody missed it. It's mystifying, would be the word.
I mean, I know how it happened. Surveyors tend not to go to the property necessarily. They draw the things on the drawing saying, okay, I did the survey before, this is my survey, I'm just going to put the tennis court or basketball court on it, how much it would change. They did it from, as I call it, from the office work instead of visiting the job site. That's how it happened.
This is a licensed surveyor we're talking about.
Riley Lane survey. Here it is.
I'm sorry?
Riley Lane survey. And so the survey, you have the building department approved stamp, doesn't show pool patio, and it's not included in the calculations.
And do you have a date on that?
It's here, but for electric rise.
The approved down below, just below.
The
your
building
name.
department stamp.
November 24 of '09.
Okay. And the prior one? And the stuff you submitted, it's got the number 4, 5, 6, 7?
The other survey, I think.
Sorry, could you survey?
Beach Delta Flags.
Was this submitted as part of the original application? You're right, so you have it. This is dated,
4, 5, 6, 7, it's the same one, top left corner.
yep,
There's handwriting at the top that says pool and cabana permit.
Yep. This looks like it was originally dated in 2002, certification added in '03, and then pool added November 21, 2005. So 2005 is the last date on the survey number 4567.
And where do you see pool added? Can you show me where that is?
The lower right corner. Topography removed and buildings/pool LLC, I'm not sure. Pool located perhaps?
Co-located, yes.
Adding November 21, 2005. Can you read that, Mr. Chairman? Do you want the oversized?
Once you tell me what it says, I think I can read it, but until then, no.
Yeah.
Let me ask you,
Okay.
did the present surveyor go to the site?
Yes. Yes. That's fine, I found all this.
Okay, so what's, go back to Evan's question a little while ago. What is not documented on the records of the village are three things, if I get it right. One is the patio around the swimming pool, which is a major item. There are some steps at the back of the property which go from the lower level to the upper level, which are calculated at 80 square feet. And there is another patio at the back of the house, which is either 843 or 643 square feet. I can't read that number.
634.
It doesn't say 34.
It's 43.
It says 43. Okay, well then you've got a variance in your numbers. But that patio, as far as I can tell, is that dirt? Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's a gravel, that's a deep gravel, that's a dirt, yes.
And is there anything else that we don't, those are the undocumented items, and then there's a wall which is next to the swimming pool and the patio, which was not in the calculation in the first place because walls didn't count back then. But
They are calculated in this calculation, right?
in the present calculation.
Present calculation.
Okay. All right.
If I could just clarify, Mr. Chairman, when we use the word undocumented, just to make sure we're all on the same page, in terms of for calculating building coverage, right? There were permits for this work. This wasn't work that was done without building department review and approval. So it was, permits were granted, COs were granted. It's undocumented in the sense that it didn't count or wasn't picked up for coverage calculation purposes.
Is that true for the patio also?
This, fortunately.
Was it
It is, unfortunately. I don't know how it happened, but it is.
Well, maybe for you, fortunately, I think that's probably the, and if you didn't, I'll tell you where I am with this. I think, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to preempt anybody. Anybody have any comments or questions they want to pose?
I want to hear where you are with this.
Yeah, that's what we all want to hear.
The numbers, I mean, the numbers are very high. And I think if you came to us with a proposed piece of property where you wanted to build out this way, we would say no, because it would be too much. That's my view. The prior owner, who, as Artie points out, has an application before us for next month.
Different property, obviously.
Different property. Just a matter of coincidence.
Which we'll accept without prejudice.
And I presume that the benefit represented by the additions we're talking about here was part of the price that you paid when you purchased the property.
Of course.
Yeah. The actual addition that is being sought, and the reason that all this came to light, if you were, in my view, again, is not that substantial. I did drive up the driveway when I visited it. It only took me 3 times to turn around and get out of there. So I think as a matter of, in some respects, safety, I think this is not an unreasonable application in terms of purpose by any means. And you have already agreed to something that I was going to propose, which would be additional screening, so that even though the wall is closer to the street, it net will not have much effect, if any, on the visual impact. But having said all that, I think you need to develop this record further. I don't doubt what you're saying about the permits having been issued, but I think because the number of the percentage overage and coverage is so high, in particular, I think we need to get the background. And so I would ask you to collect, I'm sure you already have them, the permits and the C of Os, and that will enable us to make a better record. And I think that will assist us in reaching a final conclusion. I don't know where we go if it turns out that we don't have permits and C of Os on this property. I mean, although it's really quite overbuilt, it fits together, and there's no one nearby who is particularly affected adversely by it. But I think for the sake of protecting the record and establishing the background before we just go ahead and bless this, which is what you're really asking us to do, we need to know that background a little. Any other thoughts or complaints?
I agree with what you just said. I don't know how we could either turn it down or accept it. Turning it down is kind of crazy, but accepting it without more documentation is just opening us for problems with other applications and sort of a bad legislative history.
So I would add also that I think what you said is right, that if you would have brought us an application today that was 30% over, we would vote no. And it irks me to be brought it in the end as not caused by the applicant. I mean, I get that, but troubled by it. So I don't understand how I'd like to see the building permit for that patio before I made a decision.
Yeah. It seems to me the pool patio is the issue. The other patio is basically dirt, although it's part of the calculation. And the steps in the back are a safety measure. You've got to, just to use the property, you have to get from the lower part to the upper part, and they're just wooden.
And the driveway's no net increase, but it's not counted.
Right.
So I don't have a problem with the driveway. I have
All
a
of those
problem
are
with
good
patio.
things, but the history is just so convoluted, and I think we need a little more demonstration.
When you do history, could you make clear that there was no prior application to this board? All right, I guess you can do that for us, as best you can. And identify, if you would, every application that was made to the planning board, post-construction of the house.
And speaking of that, where are you with them? Presently.
Had a very productive meeting with the planning board last month. They informally blessed the project, the driveway expansion area and the retaining wall, but asked us to come to the zoning board and finish the variance process to legalize, again, the nonconformity that would allow the planning board to grant the approval of the building department to issue a building.
Mention the C of Os in the history of the property.
No.
Okay.
They don't have 6 lawyers on their board.
Yeah, exactly.
What I'm understanding is that a 38% variance ordinarily would be deemed substantial. We can get into the law that I know we've talked about in the past about whether that's enough, and you offset that against whether there's an impact or not. So substantiality in and of itself is not enough to tip the variance test. But putting that aside for a moment, given the uniqueness of the fact that these improvements were not installed by the current applicant, 38% in and of itself sounds high, substantial, and as you said, ordinarily wouldn't be approved if it was coming here as new construction. So to create the record, go back and as best we can piece together the prior permits, prior CVOs, prior applications to both boards, planning and zoning, and come back and give your board a more full history to create a record here that would support the hopefully granting of the variance.
Well, we also, I think, want to go beyond that and see what went wrong here. A little bit of a fact-finding mission to see how the process broke down. Clearly by the fact that some things skated through. We were on trouble by a licensed surveyor putting forth a survey that may have been not complete. I don't know that for a fact. So I think we want to know everything about it and make sure that we can maybe make recommendations if there are other things that need to be looked at.
And I would just suggest, we're happy to go back and do some of that fact-finding mission, but just to be clear, and so we leave here today on the same page, are you expecting us to go back, go contact the surveyors, the prior owners? I don't want to go on a whole interview process and gain a whole record. I think
What
whatever
we're
we
You made
talking-
representations, though. You made representations before the board that these things, they're undocumented, but they're only documented because it wasn't included in the numbers, but they were all approved. So I assume you have some basis for making that statement, otherwise you wouldn't have made it. So produce that.
We have, and the survey was submitted, and whatever documents are publicly available from the building department, we will obtain and submit and create that record.
Yep.
But again, the planning board application that the survey was prepared for.
It may not have been even a planning board application, so we'll figure that out.
Whatever it is,
It might have been a building permit.
Exactly.
Well, due diligence.
And what we're talking about, if there are other pieces of paper you think would be helpful, good. But I think everything we've mentioned ought to be in the village records. So we're not asking you to go interview people and find people and that sort of thing. And if you need Mr. Rosner, apparently he's going to be here next
It's great,
month.
we'll be able to do a
Witness.
full hearing on it.
I'm particularly, just where I'm coming from, I would particularly like to see a building permit for that patio. That would be meaningful to me.
Any other questions? All right, then I'll move to adjourn this to August 23rd.
And you're already on the agenda, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, the village clerk's office already put together the agenda for the next hearing. I had told her I thought we might be able to resolve this tonight. But I think what you must have heard me say was put it on, if we have to take it off, we will. Anyway, you're already there.
So August 23rd, the submission date is what, do you know?
I think it's 10 days before, but you better
I'll
check with
confirm
Sarah.
with Sarah.
Yeah, please. And look, I've seen Zimmerman assignment submissions here before, and to the extent you can put something together that gives us a chronological history by application, permit, CLO, that'd be very helpful.
We'll do that.
It'll shorten your time the next week. Okay. All right, I'll take that as a motion to adjourn, which everybody agrees with, and we're
Yes.
adjourned, and we'll see you next month.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you very much.